Winter came, and for the first time in 5 years I wasn't afraid of it. There's a particular fear that comes with cold weather when you have nowhere guaranteed to sleep, a countdown that starts the moment the temperature drops. A calculation always running in the back of your mind. That fear had quietly gone out of me sometime over the last 2 months. So slowly I hadn't noticed it leaving until I realized, one morning, that it was simply gone. Theo had stopped asking if we were staying. He'd started asking, instead, whether Damian would be home in time for dinner. I should have recognized what that meant sooner than I did. "You're doing it again," Damian said one evening, finding me in the kitchen long after Theo had gone to bed. I'd taken to helping the housekeeper with small things, not because I needed to, but because idle hands still felt wrong to me, felt like inviting trouble. "Doing what?" "Making yourself useful, so you don't have to feel like you're taking something you didn't earn." He said it without judgment, just observation, the way he'd started saying most difficult things to me now. Plainly, gently. "You don't have to earn your place here, Eli. Old habits." "I know." He leaned against the counter, close enough that I was aware of exactly how close. "I have a few of my own." The air between us had changed over the past weeks in ways I'd been careful not to name. The way he found reasons to be in whatever room I was in. The way I'd started listening for his footsteps in the hall. Some traitorous part of me relaxing the moment I heard them. The way neither of us moved when moments like this one stretched a little too long. "Eli." My name, in his voice, always sounded different than it did anywhere else. "I need to say something, and I need you to let me finish before you decide what to do with it." I set down the towel I'd been folding. "Okay. I have spent 30 years believing that caring about someone was a door you left open for your own destruction. My father made sure of that before I was old enough to argue otherwise. He wasn't looking away from me, which I understood, somehow was costing him something. I've watched you fight for that boy every single day since the night I found you, with nothing against everything, and it has undone every single thing I thought I understood about strength. About what it means to love someone without expecting anything back. Damian, let me finish. Quiet but firm. I'm not asking you to trust me completely. I know that isn't something you hand over easily, and I wouldn't respect you if it were. I'm only asking you to let me keep proving it. For as long as it takes. I felt something in my chest crack open. The same wall that had been slowly wearing thin for weeks finally giving way. I'm scared, I admitted, the words coming out smaller than I meant them to. Every time something good has happened to us, it's been taken away. I don't know how to let myself believe this is different. Then don't believe it yet. He reached out, slow enough that I could have stopped him, and took my hand. Just stay. Let the proof come to you instead of asking you to have faith in it first. I didn't pull away. That was answer enough for both of us. I told myself in the weeks after that the tiredness was nothing. 5 years of surviving on too little sleep and less food doesn't undo itself in a season, no matter how warm the bed or how full the plate. I told myself the ache behind my eyes was only winter. I told myself a lot of things the way I always had because admitting I felt wrong meant someone would worry, and I had spent so long being the only person Theo could depend on that the idea of being anything less than fine still felt like a kind of failure. I didn't tell Damian when the headaches started. I didn't tell him when standing up too quickly made the room tilt sideways for a few seconds before it settled. I told myself it would pass the way everything eventually either passed or killed you, and I had gotten good over 5 years at betting on the first outcome. I was wrong. It happened on a Tuesday, unremarkable in every way until it wasn't. I remember standing in the kitchen. I remember the room going strange and distant, sound arriving a half-second late, like the world had slipped just out of sync with itself. I remember Theo's voice saying, "Papa?" from somewhere that felt too far away. I don't remember falling. "Damian." I heard Theo scream before I understood what I was hearing. By the time I reached the kitchen, Eli was on the floor, and Theo was on his knees beside him, small hands shaking his father's shoulder, saying "Papa" over and over in a voice climbing toward something I never wanted to hear from a 5-year-old again. "Papa, wake up. Please wake up." I don't remember crossing the room. I only remember kneeling, checking for breath, finding it thin, but there and hearing my own voice, steadier than I felt, telling Theo to step back so I could lift his father. "Dr. Whitfield met us at the hospital before I'd even finished explaining on the phone. Severe anemia, exhaustion, a body that had spent years being asked to survive on less than it needed and had finally, quietly, stopped agreeing to the arrangement. Not the fever that had once terrified Eli over his son. Something slower, something that had been building under the surface for longer than any of us had let ourselves see. He needs rest, nutrition, and time, the doctor said. His body has been in survival mode for years. It doesn't just switch off because the danger's gone. I sat beside that hospital bed the way Eli had once sat beside Theo's, and understood, for the first time in my life, what it meant to be afraid of losing something that mattered more than anything I owned. Theo wouldn't leave. He sat curled against my side in the hallway chair, too quiet, which frightened me more than if he'd been crying. Is Papa going to die? The question came out so small I almost didn't catch it. No. I said it with more certainty than I had any right to, because he needed certainty more than he needed my honest fear. Your Papa is stronger than anyone I have ever known. He is not going anywhere. But what if his voice cracked, and then it broke entirely, all at once. 5 years old and terrified in a way no child should have to be. What if he does? Who's gonna be my Papa if he doesn't wake up? I don't have anybody else. I don't. I pulled him against my chest before he could finish that sentence. And something in me that had been guarded for 30 years simply stopped being guarded. I will, I said, before I'd fully decided to say it, before I'd let myself examine whether I had the right to. If you'll let me, I will be your Papa. Can I? Theo went very still against me. You mean it? His voice was thick with tears, but something in it had started, cautiously, to hope. For real? Not just for now. For real. Not just for now. I meant it more than I had ever meant anything I'd said in my life. For as long as you'll have me. He was quiet for a moment, small fists still clutching my shirt. Yes, he said finally, fierce and certain in the way only a child fully deciding something can be. You can. I've always wanted a Papa too. And when my Papa wakes up, we can all be a family. A real one. I held him while he cried himself into an exhausted sleep against my chest. And I understood, in that hallway, that I had already been that boy's father in every way that mattered for months. I had simply been too afraid to admit it, the same way his Papa had been too afraid to admit what I meant to him. Eli woke 2 days later. I was there when he did. I had not left, except for the hours Theo insisted on sitting with him alone, small and solemn, holding his father's hand and narrating dinosaur facts to him in case, he said. He could still hear me. Damian. Eli's voice was rough, disoriented. His eyes finding me before they found anything else in the room. Theo is fine. Better than fine. I took his hand, the same way I had that night on the veranda, except now there was nothing careful or slow about it. He's been braver than either of us these past 2 days. What happened to me? I told him. All of it, the anemia, the years his body had quietly been keeping score of. The fear that had cracked something open in me I hadn't known was still sealed shut. I told him I would be his Papa, I said finally, watching his face carefully. If that's not something you want, I'll dash. No. Eli's hand tightened around mine, and his eyes filled with something that wasn't fear at all. No, I want that. I want that so much it terrifies me. Everything worth having terrifies you a little, I said. I've learned that from you. He laughed, weak and disbelieving and real, the first laugh I'd heard from him in days. We brought him home a week later, thinner than before but steady, insisting the whole ride that he felt completely fine, despite Theo's pointed skepticism from the back seat. That night, once Theo had finally fallen asleep between us, he'd refused. Since the hospital, to sleep anywhere else. I found Eli watching him in the dim glow of the star-shaped nightlight. I love you, I said quiet, the words I'd been holding since long before either of us had the courage to say them. Both of you. I don't think I understood what that word meant until the two of you walked into my life soaking wet and refusing to trust me. I love you too, Eli said, and I understood, hearing it, how long it had been true before he'd let himself say it out loud. Both of us do. He leaned in, slow enough that I could have stopped him, The same way I'd given him the chance to stop me on that veranda months ago. And I didn't stop him either. When we finally pulled back, Theo stirred faintly between us, murmuring something about dinosaurs in his sleep, entirely unaware that he was, at that exact moment, sleeping safely between both of his parents for the very first time. We had found more than shelter from the rain that night months ago. We had found each other, all three of us. And some families, I had learned, are not born. They are chosen, in a hospital hallway. In a single desperate sentence, a 5-year-old boy will remember for the rest of his life. Can I be your papa? Yes, you can.